let's talk about this crazy footage out of Ukraine of an F-16 bringing down a Shahed-style kamikaze drone using its 20mm cannon. Because this was actually a lot more difficult and a lot more dangerous than a lot of folks may realize. Now, the drone in the footage sure looks to be a Russian-built Garin 2, which is their copy of the Iranian-built Shahed 136. These kamikaze drones are basically slow-moving, low-cost cruise missiles that can cover great distances, maybe 1,600 miles or more, to deliver a roughly 110-pound high-explosive warhead, which amounts to well over 5 times the explosive capacity of a Hellfire missile. Now, these drones aren't exactly tough targets. Their single MD-550 piston engine can get them to a maximum speed of only around 115 miles per hour, and they can't fly any higher than around 13,000 feet, meaning they're pretty much susceptible to being intercepted by just about any kind of air defense system that's ever been fielded, ranging from shoulder-fired man-pads to high-end surface-to-air missiles. But that's also the problem, because, well, these drones are really cheap, with some costing as little as just 50 grand a pop. So Ukraine can't exactly afford to be launching million-dollar missiles at them. Now, there are, of course, some much less expensive interceptors and missiles that can be used on these kinds of drones. Weapons like the AGR-20, also known as the Advanced Precision Kill Weapon System 2. These mini-missiles can be launched from ground systems or from fighters, and at around 20K a pop, they cost less than half that of the cheapest kamikaze drones in Russian service. But what if you don't have any of these cheap interceptors handy, and a kamikaze drone is bearing down on a target below you? Well, if you're a damn good pilot, you can go and do what this guy did, and use the F-16's M61 Vulcan 6-barrel Gatling-style rotary cannon to blow the drone out of the sky. But to be clear, doing that comes with a lot of risk. First and foremost, targeting a slow-moving Shahed 136 from your F-16 is not a walk in the park. Ukraine's F-16s carry relatively dated AN/APG-68 pulse Doppler radar arrays that would probably struggle to identify a low-flying, slow-moving kamikaze drone against the ground clutter behind it until you're pretty close by. And then, once you get your eyes on the drone, you have very little time to line up and take your shots safely. As I already mentioned, a Shahed 136 will struggle to get up to around 115 miles per hour, while the F-16 usually cruises comfortably at more like 5 times that, right around 577 miles per hour. In fact, depending on the source you trust and the position of the aircraft's flaps, the F-16's stall speed is between 100 and 130 knots, between 115 and 130 miles per hour. In other words, if the F-16 were to slow down enough to match the drone's airspeed, it would fall out of the sky. So that means the F-16 is probably approaching the drone at 200 miles per hour or faster. And that means that if the pilot manages to get his eyes on that relatively small target from 2 miles out, he has just 36 seconds to make the shot before the fighter blows right past the drone. And that is at most, assuming he's flying at a relatively low speed. And that's just the beginning. The M61 Vulcan is an incredibly powerful weapon that fires 6,000 massive high-explosive rounds per minute. That's about 100 rounds per second, and it can effectively reach targets up to around 9,842 feet out, or right around 1.8 miles. So maybe after about 6 seconds into that 36-second window, the pilot can now engage the target, and he's got about 30 seconds to do so. But remember, the fighter is still closing with that drone as it fires. Now, Russia's Garin 2, as I mentioned, usually flies with a 110-pound high-explosive blast fragmentation warhead. And in some cases, they've been known to carry as much as 200 pounds of explosives on board. Now, assuming it's carrying that smaller 110-pound warhead, well, it's said to have roughly the same blast radius as a 105mm artillery shell. But it isn't the fireball you have to worry about, it's the fragmentation shrapnel. A standard Shahed 136 can throw sizable pieces of shrapnel hundreds of feet from the blast, and if you fly your F-16 right through that mess, its big gaping mouth of an air intake is going to gobble up all that debris and promptly crap the bed. So, this and other Ukrainian F-16 pilots taking these drones down with their guns might seem like shooting fish in a barrel, but in reality, we're talking about a very white-knuckled 30 seconds of action for this pilot, and if luck isn't on your side, a potentially very bad day for both the pilot and the aircraft, just to shoot one of these drones down with your cannon rather than a missile.